Welcome back. All right, so last night during the MSG broadcast of the New Jersey Devils New York Rangers game, Steve Valiquette got some attention talking about a breakaway move made by Jack Hughes, saying he was playing Instagram hockey. Now, I've seen people saying they don't understand what he means. I kind of get it. What he means is one of those fancy hot dog moves you would see some kid perform out there in a non-competitive style of atmosphere where they're just kind of a like, look what I can do with the puck kind of thing. Now Jack Hughes was asked about it after the game, and he's like, I don't know what he meant by that because he was just trying to score on a breakaway. He wasn't trying to embarrass Shesterkin. But it led me to this video idea here, which I've had percolating for a bit because when you watch NHL broadcasts, very often they will employ a former NHLer from a different era as the color announcer. And you will hear the back in my day mentioned a lot. So Valiquette's taking a lot of heat, and I get it, at least from Devils fans at this point. But I kind of understand what he meant here. So yes, back in the day, if you made a hot dog move like that on a breakaway looking to score a goal, there would probably be a Colton or somebody of that nature waiting to punch you for it, even though it's legal, it's okay. Hockey's weird that way. There are like so many unwritten rules of hockey. I've talked about that in videos in the past. Maybe it's time to get into some unwritten rules of hockey again and just talk about how silly some of them are. Some of them make sense, but in some cases it's a hockey play, and if you do this hockey play, boy, there's punching coming. So I get where Valiquette's coming from on this, and let's talk about 9 others as well. The Michigan wouldn't have been allowed. Absolutely. I remember when the Michigan first came in, and there was a lot of, no, we can never see that in the NHL. No guy putting the puck on his stick behind the net and just going around the front and putting it top corner. That move is very difficult. It is not an easy play. It looks easy because when guys figure it out, they can make it look easy. It is not an easy play. It is a very skilled move to be able to do that. When NHLers try to do that in practice, they struggle with it. Some very talented ones struggle with it because it's just one of those things that some of these young players are able to do, and it's become more and more common. And the idea that, and it's a very similar threat that anything you don't like, look out, we got a guy who can punch you in the head over there. Yeah, I haven't seen anybody get punched for attempting the Michigan. And defenses have started figuring out how to prevent the Michigan goal because that's the thing. You come up with a new fancy goal, and defenses will make that adjustment and will figure out a way to make sure you don't get to the net. Goaltenders will figure out, okay, this guy's likely to do that. I know he's done it before. I really have to hug the corner and make sure that he doesn't have that opening to even attempt the Michigan and think it's going to work. So, yeah, that's definitely been a discussion point, though. Celebrations of goals used to be very muted. You watch hockey games from back in the day, and the celebrations we see for goals now, that's kind of showboating. Again, by the old standards, that's kind of showboating. Just go out there and just act like you've scored before. Don't go out there and fall on the ice and do this little dance or jump into the glass when it's a 5 minutes into the first period and that's the first goal that's been scored in the game. Don't celebrate too much because again, see that guy over there? He's waiting to punch people. He punched somebody last week that did the Michigan. So you guys are really celebrating. He's gonna punch you for that too. Basically, almost anything that's fun and looks fun for the fans, there's some guy waiting to get pop him one for it. One of the most common that I hear watching broadcasts is that wasn't a penalty in my day. Well, back when I played, that wasn't a penalty. Fine. We understand that wasn't a penalty. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could basically just like hug a guy in front of the net and just kind of pull him away from the front of the net. The refs would go, I didn't see a hold. Did you guys? I didn't see it. And so it's part of the reason why scoring was so tough to make work in the late 90s, early 2000s. Guys were able to do basically whatever they wanted to defensively in order to prevent you from getting that goal. Within reason, obviously, but yes, there are a lot of plays that now are penalties that weren't. The slash on the hands is the one I hear that a lot with. It's a slash on the hands, they call it all the time, but back in my day, that wasn't a penalty. Okay, but it is now. And so it is, and it's going to continue to be. I'm pretty sure Gary Bettman isn't watching broadcasts and going, what did I do? That didn't used to be a penalty, and now it is. We need to rescind that immediately. Make the call. I don't see it. And that is related to number 5, which is the defense could clear the front of the net, and that is absolutely accurate. The defense could clear the front of the net, so all these schmozzles in front of the net didn't necessarily occur so much. And I feel bad for goaltenders because everybody just rips on goaltenders now, like, the goaltending's not what it used to be, which is not on the board. So this is a bonus one. But it's not that the goaltending isn't what it used to be in my eyes. It's that all these guys are getting these shots from really close to the net that back in the late 90s, Mike Rathje would have just decked them for. Defensemen of that nature would have just made sure they weren't there. Those goals were not available back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Believe me, goal scorers back then would have loved for those goals to be available. They just weren't, because you'd get a stick in the teeth. You'd get cross-checked out of the way. You might get concussed trying to get to that part of the ice. So it's not as simple as goaltenders aren't what they used to be. Yeah, they are. It's just players now are able to get to these spots in front of the net because you call holding, you call slashing, you call holding the stick, you call various obstruction like moves and penalties that weren't called back in a previous era. So when you hear people ragging on goaltenders now, and back in the day they could play 70 games plus, you could say, yeah, and they used to have the front of the net was cleared out, and man, if you touched a goaltender, you have a bunch of guys jumping on it. You still do, but it's not the same. Now it's just a bunch of guys milling around in a scrum. The joke that my grandfather used to make watching hockey when there'd be a little scrum on the ice, they're just talking about where they're going to go for steak after the game. But yeah, so it is definitely something that's different in the game now from where it was, and it's part of the reason why goals are scored the way they are now, as opposed to the way they were scored way back in the day. Opponents weren't friendly during the game. This is one that you don't hear often, but every now and then you'll see it, where guys are just talking between the benches. Maybe they're chatting during warm-ups. I don't like that. That doesn't show that killer instinct. Those guys should just hate each other right now because they're going to play each other. I'm not sure that the hate is necessary in a regular season game in October, November, or even December. I think that it's overblown a little bit. I don't think that it means that a player's not trying as hard because he's like, well, I could make a run to the net, but I'm going to make that defenseman look bad, and that's my friend, so I'd rather not. I don't think there's any NHL players thinking that way. I think, if anything, it changes the way the competition was. Back in the day, yeah, I hated everybody. And now it's kind of like, let's have a little bit of a competition. Next time I go over to his house for coffee, I'm going to rub it in his nose that I just run around him to get to the net and scored. I feel like it's more that vibe now. And so, yeah, they're friendly during the games, comparatively speaking, with how things were. But I don't think it takes away from the competitiveness. And that's always the accusation, is it means players are less competitive. And I just don't see that. Teams didn't run up the score. You run up the score, you're going to be looking at some fighting. And that happens now. Again, comparatively speaking to back in the 80s when you run up the score like that whole third period would just be fighting. Just be fighting. And you would even hear when a goal got scored, well, they didn't really need to score that one. And the comparison I would make is almost any other sport in the world. Just imagine a baseball game. Guy hits a home run and they go, well, now the score is 12-1. He really didn't need to do that, Now they're just running up the score. They're embarrassing that poor pitcher, and I don't appreciate it. I don't think that's good. You don't hear that. Football teams, if you can keep running on that defense and you can keep going through and getting touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, you kind of do it. There is a point where NFL teams will pull up and stop, but it's when they've got like a 30, 40-point lead. And then if the team that's down dares to score a touchdown, well, then it's time to run them up again. So I definitely think running up the score is more accepted now than it was in previous generations. And I don't have a problem with it. The one thing that I wish people would ask is, when a coach or somebody gets mad about, they're running up the score, why doesn't somebody ask them, did you guys think about playing better so they can't? Did you guys think about, getting together and figuring out how to approach the rest of the game so you might be able to get a couple of goals? Because stop blaming them because you're bad. You shouldn't blame the other team because your team isn't any good. So, at least in that game, not saying overall, just it's a weird way to look at things, is how dare you guys keep playing hockey We're clearly down. Leave us alone. The first unit wouldn't be out with such a lead. This is related to number 7. I did tie these together on purpose. And this is a complaint that you see too. Scores 5-1 in the third period. Why is the first unit out on the power play? I don't know, because it's the first unit. And it is so weird to just expect them to throw out a bunch of scrubs on the power play. Because if you're up 5-1 and you put out your first unit, yeah, you might score and make it 6-1. But if you put out all your scrubs, it could be 5-2 because all of a sudden there's a shorthanded goal, and now that team's got maybe a little confidence, a little momentum, and now you've got to get your team back into the attack mindset. And if you've already told them, hey, this game's done, yeah, no, we're good, maybe it's tougher to flip that switch, and you don't want to give the other team daylight. It is such a weird perspective that people have on this. Like, oh, I can't believe the first unit's out there. Because you don't want the team that's killing the penalty to get that confidence and start rolling it the other way. Because we know in this day and age that leads are only as good as the team holding them. And sometimes the team doesn't hold the lead very well. And I've seen where teams this season have the start of the third period, all of a sudden they're just playing back, dump it in, dump and chase, dump and chase. And when I say chase, I mean there's one forechecker and everybody else just sits back. And I'm thinking, you've only got a 2-goal lead. What the hell are you doing? Why are you playing this way when you've only got a 2-goal lead and there's 20 minutes of hockey and you're just handing them the puck over and over and over again and daring them to come through the middle of the ice and into your zone? And if one puck goes in, all of a sudden it's a 1-goal lead. What are you doing? So it is one of those oddities to see that complaint about the first unit being out on the power play. Well, of course. We didn't need analytics. I don't hear this one as much as I used to. I do sometimes see this from fans online. Every single team has an analytics department now. Every single team has a capologist. Every single team has an analytics person because it is now part of the game. The analytics are meant to tell you who's playing well beyond just the score, just beyond the regular stats. And that's always the argument of we already have the regular stats. We have goals and assists and wins and losses. We don't need the analytics. But analytics, when used in a balanced way, can definitely help give you a better picture of who's actually playing well, who isn't actually playing well. And there's other ways to look at it too, with strength of competition and all of that. But yeah, analytics I think are really great for the game. I think they're fun. I'm glad that we're seeing more and more of them during the play. And over the last 8 years that I've run this channel, my mind has completely changed on analytics. When I started the channel back in 2016, I was very much one of those. I don't need the analytics. I don't care. I don't care about the analytics. No, I'm just going to talk about just the regular stats. The analytics, they're cute and they're fine. They don't interest me. And I've been critical of teams that just use analytics, but you don't hear that anymore. It doesn't feel like teams are just using analytics. They're using the analytics and the regular stats to get the big picture. So the game has definitely changed from that perspective. And it has changed who we think is playing well. Because, yeah, back in the day, there could be a guy who scores 40 goals in a season, can't play defense worth a lick. Terrible defensively, but he's got 40 goals. So people are like, hey, he's a pretty good player. Pay the man. And ignoring the defensive play. And now if you can't play defense, you might be a good goal scorer, but you're probably going to end up on the bench. You're probably not going to be playing because the defensive gaffes may outweigh your absolute ability to get that puck in the net offensively. So that's a huge change, and analytics, I think, are a big part of the reason why that change has taken place. And then getting back to the fighting part, the Semenko Probert reference, and this happens a lot of, well, that play, and it's various plays, various things that happen. If you did that back then, Dave Semenko would come over the boards and you'd be dealing with him. And we always hear this too of, what this team needs is they need an enforcer. They need somebody who's going to protect those star players. And yet the teams that generally do a good job of protecting, and I don't like to use the term protecting because it's not like star players don't still get injured on those teams, but it's a team mentality now. You used to have a Dave Semenko, a Bob Probert, a deterrent. Now it's more of a team identity where, okay, if we go in and if we play this style of hockey, they're probably going to beat the hell out of us. And it's not one guy. It's that you have an entire team that's bought into this idea that if one of us gets hit and if it's in this manner, all of us have to go out and defend that player. And it might even include the goaltenders in that as well. So I think the game has changed where it's bigger players, it's faster players. I don't feel like toughness is gone. I feel like instead of having a few tough guys per team, you have a lot of players who can stand up for themselves and stand up for each other. And so that's changed how it looks visually. And it leads to a lot of these scrums on the ice where you've got 5 players from each team all huddled together. And you knock it off. You knock it off. Well, you started. I did not. And all that kind of stuff. But that, it feels like, is how things have changed. You do something stupid, you still have to drop the gloves. It's just instead of it being Semenko or Probert, it could be almost anybody on the other team who comes over and goes, I saw what you did. I saw that hit. And now we're going to drop the gloves. And the guy coming over to make that challenge may even not be a fighter. He might be a skilled player who's willing to go over and stand up for his teammate, which I think is more impressive than if something happens on the ice yelling out, "Hey Dave, get out here. Come on, we need you, Dave." Most of the tough guys, it seems like, were named Dave back in the day. Dave, get out here. You got to deal with this. Now it's, we'll deal with this ourselves. We don't need a Dave in our lineup who's going to, make sure that these guys pay the price every time they cross the line. The game has changed a lot. It has changed a lot. Even in the time I've been making videos, the game has changed quite a bit. Offense has gone through the roof in those 8 years. And again, the people talking about, the goaltending's not as good. I think it's just that now they're cracking down on more and more things that defenses were getting away with forever that was preventing those skilled players from being able to take those shots. And the NHL definitely wants the skill to shine through because then it's an easier product to market. It's easier to market the product saying, here's our skilled player. Look at this amazing play he pulled off right in front of the net. Rather than, hey, this skilled player tried to pull out this amazing play at the net and got concussed because Bruno there decided, I don't think so, and just knocked him out with his stick. And we didn't call a penalty on the play because, he's right in front of the net and he should have known better than to go there, which seemed to be some of the mentality back in the day. So there you go. And I will never refer to it as back in my day because I didn't have one. I never played in the National Hockey League. So, back in my day, the only thing I could say that about might be like video games, TV, movies, like that kind of thing. So I never played in the National Hockey League, so I can't say back in my day. But I understand where some of these former players are coming from in their frustration because the game has definitely changed a lot. Some of them seem to appreciate the changes and some not so much. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. For instance, something I don't mention in this video that you feel like a color announcer might be like back in my day, and they talk about that. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.